Hi, I'm Dr. Hans. In 2000, I received my MD, started on a path of internal medicine and infectious diseases. In 2017, my little guy was diagnosed with a SYNGAP1 syndrome, and I became a rare disease advocate. And in 2021, I joined industry to work on rare diseases as much as possible. And I love talking about rare diseases, and wow, what news out of ASGCT. So not only from a big picture standpoint, but also from a SYNGAP standpoint. So big picture, unless you've been under a rock, you heard about KJ, right? And this is, reported at ASGCT. This is also on the New England Journal of Medicine website. Little guy diagnosed at birth, crumps after, a delivery a few weeks early for intrauterine growth restriction. And the really forethought plan kicks into place, right? Get rapid genome sequencing, get a diagnosis, and get moving on an opportunity to correct the underlying variant, right? To gene edit this little guy. So he's born with CPS1, urea cycle disorder, sky-high ammonia levels, 50% chance of significant disability or death. And the parents are approached about, really the most cutting edge science to be put in a human. And I read somewhere that someone said it was a tough decision and very brave of them. Wow, I would have signed before they finished the offer, because just what a hell to go through, right? If you've been there, you know what I'm talking about. And if you do have an open-mindedness and a level of optimism for what science will bring to us, for me, it would have been an easy decision. I never try to minimize what other people go through. It's, that arrogance. So for them, brave, and the team just crackerjack. There's a phrase that the 1927 Yankees were murderers row, and you just look at the paper and you're like, whoa. It's an apt description, but never like saying it out loud, right? Really just super strong and written up at the same time. You go through the paper and you see the milestones. You'd love to see the Gantt chart, right? The timelines. Everybody just moving so fast, just doing everything possible, really lifting heaven and earth. And then 6 months later, they're treating him 2 hours long and the kid just sleeps right through it. Second treatment, I think he coughed, and that was it. So really just overwhelming joy to think that we have reached a point where treatment can do this. Obviously, he's going to be watched so closely, and anything that goes wrong is going to raise eyebrows and so forth. But I think you have to savor the moment where really a life-saving intervention from almost science fiction is made possible. So, lipid nanobodies, packaging up, base editing, delivered, lipid nanoparticles just sort of home in right to the liver where these enzymes are so key. I don't want let's say, folks to think that this is around the corner for everyone. There's a huge amount of barriers still, right, to widespread use. The genetic variant has to sort of be amenable to that intervention. And there's a lot of deep science that I just barely grasp, right? So these PAM sequences that need to be right nearby to let the guide RNA in, and the CRISPR-Cas9. Liver delivery is let's say the low-hanging fruit. Getting it to the CNS, getting it into the brain, a whole lot harder. And still, nevertheless, the expenses of this small batch GMP, good manufacturing process, CMC manufacturing are still significant. And it's just an opportunity for supporters of the NIH to really just dunk on detractors. And that's not to say that, audits couldn't improve the function and tweaking here or there, but this has all been on the back of NIH funding, which left, the rest of the world sort of in awe for the level of science and productivity. So really just fantastic. This is why you keep a bottle of champagne in your fridge, right? I mean, who knows what the news is that lights up your life? But this is when you break it out. So I hope you have a take a look at the paper. I don't know if it's open access. I'll put links in the minutes. What's great also about the New England Journal is the protocols right there as well, right? And you can, if you enjoy that sort of thing, but this is my, version of like a Tom Grisham novel. You look at this and you see how much thought went into it and the approach that informs how others may, do it in their own clinical circumstances. Accompanying editorial to talk about it, explain it in greater detail, and, stay tuned because it's a really critical moment to realize how proof of concept became proof of success. So that was obviously the biggest news to come out of ASGCT, the American Society of Gene and Cell Therapy. But in addition, if you go to the abstracts, for those that can't attend at the drop of a notice, you just wind up coming down here and you can take a look at 1,500 pages or so of the latest in this field. You've got a number of SYNGAP presentations as well. So besides the big news of KJ and ASGCT, there's also significant SYNGAP news. When you go to these abstract sections, you can find it. First, there's the report of Biomarin collaborating with the Allen Institute for Brain Science in Seattle. And this is fantastic because the abstract describes the preclinical work that they're doing in mice, showing that, they've got full packaged SYNGAP in an AAV right at the sort of cusp of what the packaging limit is of AAV technology, that they've given it to SYNGAP deficient mice and it's bumped up their SYNGAP levels, it's improved their phenotype in certain ways, and also that it's Biomarin because they've already successfully developed AAV as an intervention in Roctavian for hemophilia. So this is great news. It's going to be incredibly interesting to see what further reports for this in terms of the dose, et cetera, safety bring about, and, hurry up. So then there's the next one on CAMP4, right, affecting regulatory RNAs. And they had already reported that they were getting ready to move to non-human primates, which is just sort of the last step before you get to humans. And I just showed this graphic, and you can find it online. We're right around here, right? So in vivo studies, actually within living organisms, and then the standards to mammalian species, that can be, let's say, modified depending on the severity of an illness. So obviously with Melisyn and Valeriusyn, you look at the NLORM efforts for KIF1A, super sick kids, life-threatening illnesses at times, and you don't have to necessarily do a primate study. You can just sort of streamline and hurry up, and the FDA is okay with that. So CAMP4, for whatever reason, they want to double check, they want to get something right, etc. They're going to do a primate study by the end of 2025. And then with those results that come in, if it's a 12-week, 13-week, 6-month study, hope not, they'll process those results and it'll sort of ungate the IND submission and the opportunity to enroll humans. So you talk about home stretch, but there are so many hiccups that come up. There are so many twists and turns that, again, I've used the phrase, you have to manage expectations. And that's what I'm doing. And it's what we all have to do. So Next, there's a description of a mouse model for SYNGAP Q503X in a model, and kudos to SRF for funding this. This gives another resource available to the research community. And next, the Joe Anderson effort, sort of publishing along with Jill Silverman, the SYNGAP1, the Rett syndrome effort. I have to admit, without seeing a poster, I don't know what's new about this, but there is something that, merited publication at ASGCT. I've been meaning to do a deeper dive on this technology. If you listened, I think, to the second podcast, I talked about going to the FDA with Joe. This was a Interact meeting emphasizing, that SYNGAP is a severely debilitating, life-threatening illness that, you can let us hurry up in the same way that I was just referring to CAMP4 and primate testing. And I'd love to see this happen. There's also twists and turns to it, but, to be continued. And I'll get to that as soon as possible. But hopefully in that short amount of time, wow, there's a lot of reasons to feel so good about what science is doing for rare disease, rare genetic disease. And hopefully we just keep pushing, right? That the NIH has the funding to support this, that industry takes an interest, that FDA and regulators across the world streamline the pathway for these events to just reach more and more people in need. So with that, thanks for listening. Hope your day was as good as mine. Bye.